Five, four, three, two, one. Hello, Internet peeps. Welcome to our bi-weekly video games show called Escape from SideQuest. I am Joe Dubs.
I'm Andy. I'm the other one.
Yes. And if you're not familiar with us, we do Big Trouble of Podcast. That's our movie podcast. But we're talking gaming, motherfucker. And we are here in the virtual world doing virtual shit, talking about virtual games. Andy, what the hell have you been playing?
I played a bunch the last 2 weeks. Of course, last time we talked about I had just got my VR headset. So since then, I've played more Super Hot. I beat Res Infinite. I actually streamed that. Dubs, you watched me beat that game. That was fun. But I played like some of the demo disc and stuff like that. I've been playing a bunch of PlayStation. I played Bushido Blade 2. Streamed that as well. Chrono Cross. I was streaming that, but someone told me I didn't have sound, so I had to stop and fix that. But I'm going to stream more of it in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I beat Panzer Dragoon Orta. And I played the Octopath Traveler demo.
What do you think of it?
Man, I want to love that game, but it's not like I'm at like if 10 was buying it, I'm at like a 7, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The game's really cool. I like the concept. And of course, you know, the demo isn't everything, but the soundtrack's amazing, and I really like the look of it, but the story just kind of seemed meh. It seemed, I don't know. Man, obviously later on it'll probably be better. I'll probably regret not buying it at launch because then I can't get the Amazon discount on it. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, quickly to touch on that, I did buy it today in physical. I went to GameStop and treated myself to the game, even though I'm probably not going to play it right away, maybe. Because I don't know. I have a problem. I need to get rid of the problem. I will say this, when I played the demos, I didn't really, like you said, didn't care for the story at all. Mm-hmm. I was digging the combat system and the art style and the music. And then it comes back to me, like in Final Fantasy, like the old Final Fantasy games or any JRPG turn-based game, I rarely cared about the story anyway. I just wanted to fight things. So
that was like the main thing that I was interested in. It's like if a game has a boring story, I can't stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess there's the interesting dichotomy.
Yeah, I mean, in JRPGs, like, I guess that's the cool thing that I like. Like, there's certain, like, Final Fantasy X, like, I dig the story in it, and that's like, that's like a minority in people when they talk about 10. They're like, I don't like the story. The gameplay is kind of cool, but I start, like, in other games, like Metal Gear, obviously, and Resident Evil, I do care about the story, but that's a different type of game, anyway.
Yeah, I have been playing a few things recently where I have surprised myself by being like, I don't fucking care about this. Get to the next. Bushido Blade, I did this. There's a story in Bushido Blade, but that's a fighting game. And I was just kind of like, I don't fucking ninjas. There's a bunch of ninjas, and they want to kill the other ninjas. I don't give a fuck about this story. Skip, and then I go to the next fight.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's an RPG, man, that's you got to go with your best foot forward. And if you're an RPG, I got to assume that's what it is. It's got to be your story. That's got to be why I'm playing this game.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's certain RPGs, obviously. Witcher 3 is one of them, where it has a good story, but I just got overwhelmed with all the stuff I got to do in that game. Skyrim is another one. Kind of overwhelmed me, but
pretty much all the Elder Scrolls games are like that a little bit. Even Morrowind and Oblivion, it's just like, hey, you're in a dungeon. Okay, now you're in the world. Go, I guess. And you're like, fuck, I don't...
I tend to like more linear games than open world games, but some of them, I don't know if God of War can be considered. No, there was a linear path in that, even though they do have like open world stuff in there. But like, when I'm pushed in a direction, especially when it's the main story, I'll dig it. But like when they say, hey, you're in this world, go, I'm like, fuck, what do I do? Like that other people like that, and I get that, but for me, I'm just like, nah, fuck that. Looks like we got viewers in here, by the way. Welcome. We're talking about video games. Are you done with your list of what you've been playing?
Yeah, I'm sure there was more, but man, I can't remember it at all.
Where do you find to play all these games? Do you just play games at night before you go to bed, or?
Where do I find the time? Is that what you said?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah, mostly in the evening. Honestly, I never find time to play a game longer than an hour. That's why I'm pretty sure that starting Chrono Cross was a huge mistake.
Mm-hmm.
But the weekends and honestly, before work in the morning, sometimes I'll get up. I set my alarm for like 7. I got to be at work at 9. And sometimes if I can rush through a shower and then I'm just eating Pop Tarts instead of a real breakfast, I'll sit down and play for like half an hour or two there.
Nice. Yeah, I have to get. Sometimes I gotta get motivated to game, and that's pretty sad sometimes. But maybe I just need to start doing these like 1 hour burst gameplays of just gaming, just not as like a job like a job or something. Just a game. I forgot how to game sometimes. But anyway, what I have been playing is Wild Arms for the PS1.
Oh, that's interesting. I almost started. I kind of wish I had now. I almost started Wild Arms, but I started Chrono Cross at the last minute instead. I
Mm.
have those two and uh, not Xenoblade. Oh my God, what's the Xeno game on the PlayStation?
Xeno Chronicles?
I almost said Chronicles, but yeah, Xeno Chronicles. I have that and Chrono Cross and Wild Arms, and I was trying to decide between the three. So that's interesting because I almost started Wild Arms. We didn't talk about this at all.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever played Wild Arms before, or?
No, I bought Wild Arms 2 from a friend a few years ago and kept meaning to start it, but I was like, man, I'd really like to play the first one first. And then I bought it not even a year ago at a video game show, and I have been meaning to start it. I kept wanting to find there was a remake for the PS2. I really wanted it, but man, I can't find it anywhere. And that PlayStation 1 appeared, and it was like a reasonable price, so I got it.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty good. I mean, again, I could not tell you the story because it always involves something with like a castle and a king, and it's like you got to do this for some strange reason, and I'm like, all right, cool. And there's like 3 classes, I believe. I think there is a hunter, I think a warrior or something like that. I'm probably fucking it up, but I chose hunter because it sounded cooler than the other 2.
Hmm.
And
It came up in something I was reading this last week because it is kind of like Octopath Traveler in that there are other characters and they come together, like their stories do.
Yeah, I will say this: I got really fucking confused in the starting of the game because it's like wherever path you go, like there's a cave. I went in there, and there was a guy blocking it and said, "You're not allowed to be here. Go to this city." And then I go to that city and I talk to everybody and I make sure to interact with any object possible. And I'm like, nothing happens. So I was like, maybe if I go to this town and talk to everybody. Because I talked to the mayor of that town, and he's like, "Oh yeah, one of our guys is in that cave," and I'm like, maybe I just triggered that scene. Maybe now he's gone, and I go back to the cave and he's not moving, and then I go to other towns and it's like you got to go back to that town. And I'm like, all right, I'm definitely missing something here.
I mean, I hate to be that guy, but Google it, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know how you feel about like gaming guides, but I game guide a lot back in the day. Not because I wanted to, because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, but I just wanted 100% the games back then, and I thought by getting the game guide I could find like all the shit instead of just like spending way too much time.
I always get entertained reading them anyway. Like when I was a kid, I had the Final Fantasy and the Metal Gear ones. Even after you beat the game, they're just kind of interesting to read. Like I would read about like the weapons in Final Fantasy, like the ones you fight in Final Fantasy weapons. And then like Metal Gear, there was a bunch of stuff about like the background of all the villains and the making of the game and stuff. And I always liked that kind of stuff a whole lot.
Yeah, and all the Easter eggs that you would never find on your own, and the internet wasn't that big back then.
Yeah, like the ghosts in Metal Gear Solid. Like if you have the camera and you take pictures of certain areas of the game, you'll find ghosts. And the ghosts are all the people who worked on the game.
Yeah. God, gaming was so cooler back then.
I
I
mean, you know me, I'm always playing those old games too, but yeah.
well, here's what I find funny. Like 5 years ago, if you would say, Dubs, you're gonna play a Nintendo console and you're gonna like it and you'll be playing Nintendo games again, I would laugh in your face. I'd be like, I ain't playing that fucking shit. I love Xbox. I love Sony.
Pissed.
And here I am today, being a Nintendo, not a fanboy because I have all systems, but I prefer to play Nintendo games now and play retro games. Like, I am not looking forward to uh like, the only game I'm really really looking forward to now is Death Stranding, Last of Us Part 2, and Ghost of Tsushima. I don't know how to say that name, but
Yeah, Ghost of Tsushima, Death Stranding, and Red Dead Redemption 2 for
oh
me.
yeah, that too. That's another game. But it's those games that we know from those companies that are going to deliver. Like, I don't care about Call of Duty anymore. I don't care about Battlefield, even though I'm watching a Battlefield gameplay beta of the new one that came out. It looks pretty cool, but I'm not I'm not gonna spend the $60 just to play multiplayer. But I'm looking forward to playing old games again, like Wild Arms. I'm playing Metal Gear on the NES. I'm like, I don't care for new games. I'm going backwards.
Well, you saying that kind of reminded me, like, I'm excited for all those games too, like the ones you were talking about, and Red Dead and whatever, all the
Hmm.
Smash Brothers I'm excited about. But I started thinking about it and I felt bad for a second because I was like, oh, but what about all these nice indie games I always like? I always end up liking stuff like Golf Story or Super Hot or Fez or something like that. But you don't really hear about that stuff until it's out and it's big. And that's kind of, I like that still as far as like modern gaming goes, because in order to make a game, it costs, it's multiple millions of dollars now, not even including marketing.
Hmm.
Whereas it used to be you could program a game with just like half a dozen guys in a closet somewhere in Japan and you could come out with a really good NES game. So I guess what I'm trying to say is gaming is still kind of exciting to me, but it's more wait and see. It's these indie games coming out are a lot of fun too, but I can't get excited about them because I don't know if they're going to be any good before they come out.
Hmm. Because they don't get the same press as like a Red Dead Redemption would get.
And when they do get enough press, they end up being a disappointment. Look at Mighty Number Nine. Look at Ukulele.
No
Stuff like
Man's
that.
Sky.
Yeah, No Man's Sky. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's weird. There's a weird. It used to not be like that. It used to be all games were the great unknown, and I would buy games based on I'd get my tips and tricks, my Game Pro, my Electronic Gaming Monthly. But more than that, it would be what my friends were playing, and they would say. I remember I got Metal Gear Solid based almost solely on what one of my best friends told me. He was like, "Oh, this game's great. It's going to be great. You should get it." And just sight unseen, I traded in 2 games and bought Metal Gear Solid and never looked back. That's still one of my favorite games to this day. But like, there was a build up to Metal Gear Solid, but I wasn't aware of it as a kid.
Hmm.
It was a completely different landscape. Like the build up back then was like a few 1-page advertisements in Game Pro. Now it's like, I mean, Super Bowl spots and billboards in major cities and
Twitter,
music
Twitch.
tie-ins. Like you can get like vinyl records of the trailers music from Death Stranding and Last of Us 2 and stuff like that from Mondo. But like it's just a 7-inch record and all it has is the music from the trailer on it, which admittedly very cool music, but I mean it's such a different landscape as far as game promotion and discovery goes.
Hmm. You brought up a good point where you heard it from your friends and stuff, and that's what brought your interest. I kind of miss those. I think we're too. Gaming has like reached its kind of like peak of where it's everywhere now, and because I remember back then how I found out which games were good and bad, and it was pretty much going to Blockbuster. and going, "Hey, this game cover looks cool. Let me play it." And then you go home and it's shit. And then then you get games like Final Fantasy and stuff, and you're like, "Oh, this is fucking cool. Why did I get this instead of like fucking Battletoads?" Even
Yeah.
though even though Battletoads is somewhat an okay game, just frustrating.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. But remembering those days of like Blockbuster and other stuff, we never had a Blockbuster. We had network video and classic video. Ooh, but remembering those, does that make you want to do like there's that new Sony PlayStation Play, whatever it is, like the version where you can like just stream games, like where you have access to all of them because you have a monthly subscription fee? Like, are you interested in that? There's a Microsoft version too, from what I understand.
Yeah, I dabbled with Game Pass already through the PC stuff, and I like it. I don't know. Here's the thing, because I hope they put more indie games in there so that I can try them out before I go, hey, I really want to buy this game. With those two streaming services, they pick and choose what's going to be on their list, kind of like a Netflix kind of thing. Like you'll have Battlefield, Call of Duty, Metal Gear, Red Dead, and stuff. And then let's say a whole new wave of games come out, then maybe like games like Metal Gear that you actually like and Red Dead get deleted.
Well, they cycle stuff out?
Yeah, on Game Pass they do.
How many games are on there at any given time, I wonder?
I know at Game Pass on Xbox there is like hundreds of titles, and that has a lot of third-party games in there too.
Seems like it would be hard to get bored.
Yeah, it's cool. I don't know. I guess I miss the nostalgia of, the unknown instead of just everything being in our face now on Twitter and Twitch and YouTube and fucking Super Bowl and shit. I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting too old and I'm like, these dang kids don't know what it means to like video games back in the day.
I'm trying not to be that person, but yeah, things are definitely different. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I finally, because I know you collect old systems. Unfortunately, I don't. So I have to get mine through emulators, and I finally got my PS2 emulator to work.
Wait, is that how you're playing Wild Arms on emulation?
Yeah.
Isn't Wild Arms available on the PlayStation Network?
I think so.
Oh, well, do you have a Vita or a PlayStation 3, though?
No, I don't.
Oh, well, never mind that.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, me playing Metal Gear on the NES, I've been watching a lot of Metal Gear videos, which Metal Gear is my favorite franchise.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Metal Gear 5, rest in peace. Konami sucks. Pretty much, I wanted to get a PS3 so I can get the Metal Gear Legacy Collection. And then I kept on looking through Amazon and stuff, and I'm like, I wonder how much a PS3 is, and it's still in the $200. You could find like 150, 180, but I just don't want to spend that much money.
I picked up that collection not long ago. I must own Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 like 4 times over each, at least. Nah, let's see, I own 2 at least 4 times, and I own 3 at least 3 times. But I have never played Peace Walker, which is a shame, I know. But I bought it just for that game.
It's a good game. If you have a chance.
Peace Walker?
Yeah, Peace Walker, yeah. It still has your traditional Metal Gear elements. It's kind of like has portable ops in there a little bit.
Yeah, that I did play. I beat portable ops.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people say that it's not canon, but it is canon.
Yeah, it is, but it isn't. Like, it's kind of in canon because in so much that it's non-obtrusive to like what else is going on. Plus, they also introduced like Miller and a couple other things. But Kojima didn't directly oversee that one. He was a producer, not a director, and that's a lot of people's hangups with that. I could talk about the idiosyncrasies and ins and outs of the Metal Gear / Hideo Kojima timeline all fucking day, man. But keep going. Sorry.
What's your? I'm curious, and I don't remember if you said this before. But what is your favorite Metal Gear?
3, barely. 3, barely. It's 3.
Mm-hmm.
Like 3 beats out 1 by a little tiny bit. But man, 3 is so finely crafted, and I really think what hooks it for me is I also have a love of James Bond films, and they do that up a little bit. Like it's got that flavor of Bond in there. It's got that sweet intro video,
Uh-huh.
and like he gets laid and stupid stuff like that.
Yeah, Major Zero is a big fan of James Bond. If you listen to the Codex,
Mm-hmm. I sure did listen to them.
mm-hmm.
I listened to Paramedic a lot too. She's always talking about old movies, Godzilla and Dracula and shit.
Which, by the way, all Paramedics movies is Kojima's favorite movies. So
yeah, it's all stuff that Kojima actually like. He watches like 2 movies a week and like reads a new book every week and shit. I don't understand how he has time to do anything. I think I've said that on the show.
Maybe that's why his games take forever.
Maybe like everyone's just sitting around waiting for direction from Kojima. God damn it! Why you fucking tell me what to do with this guy with the gas mask?
And he comes to work. I'm back. Let's get to work. My favorite Metal Gear is Sons of Liberty.
Really?
Yeah. Huh. I didn't really mind Raiden that much. I was kind of disappointed that I had to play Raiden because
no, I'm with you on that one. Raiden's okay. He's an interesting character.
Mm-hmm. The whole thing where things started getting weird with the Colonel and learning about like this is a snake simulation kind of thing. I was like, this is fucking rad. I'm like, it really messed with your mind, especially when you meet the president and he's like, I'm not really powerful. I mean, these Sons of Liberty, the Patriots, are the ones that are pulling the strings. I'm just a puppet. And it's like, fuck, man. Like, everything was like a mind blown in this game.
Yeah. I like that game a lot. I don't understand why other people do. It's my 3rd favorite, coincidentally. It goes like 3, 1, 2, 5, 4. But
mine's 2, 1, and 3, and 4.
Yeah. But the story in 2 is so interesting. Like it's almost the most interesting story in the whole series, I'd say, honestly, because it has multiple levels, and yeah, it's a little hard to understand. I had to beat the game a few times, but there was a long time ago. It almost feels like time, but like fucking 8-10 years ago, I used to work for GameStop, and someone was asking about games to buy or something. I described Metal Gear Solid 2 by saying, oh, well, at the end of the game, you fight the ex-president with katanas on the roof of the Federal Reserve Building in New York after driving a battleship into it. And he's like, oh, okay, well, sold, I guess. And it's just like crazy set pieces like that. But instead of, a game like Call of Duty has a bunch of set pieces, but it's kind of like the story exists to get you between the set pieces. The set pieces in Metal Gear Solid serve the story directly, which is the big difference. Like, the story was written and they said, what's the craziest, coolest thing we can do with this story? And that's how they made that game. That makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm. And when people look at it, like when they say, well, I can't take this game seriously. I'm like, well, that's almost every Japanese developer is like, they throw in these weird, outlandish things, but it's cool at the same time. You just got to take it for what it is. It's a video game. I don't like this finally clicked in my mind because back then I used to be like, I want this game to be so realistic, like I'm there and stuff. And I want it to look cool. And I'm like, now I'm like, I just want it to be a video game.
Yeah.
Just have fun. And when Kojima does these games where you're fighting like Psycho Mantis and all of a sudden he's like, all right, in order to defeat this boss, you have to put your controller into the second port so it won't read your mind. And, some people might find that like a waste of their time because probably they have to get up and go unplug their console and stuff. But I'm like, holy shit, that's fucking cool.
I like Kojima's fourth wall breaking shit. Like, every once in a while, he pushes the boundaries of what I would consider acceptable, like stuff that like really breaks immersion. And I realize that's what breaking the fourth wall does, is it's going to bring me on the story. But I honestly don't know how else to convey. Like, the Psycho Mantis fight is the best way to talk about that. Like, he reads your memory card.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll talk about like, oh, you're reckless because you don't save enough, or you're very cautious. That means you save a bunch. You like to play Castlevania because Castlevania Symphony of the Night is on your memory card. Stuff like that. Like, in the game, Psycho Mantis could have been like, oh, you like to drink too much, and you fear being dragged back into responsibility for something like stuff that would be specific to Solid Snake.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be interesting because it would be telling you about Solid Snake's character. But when Solid Snake is like, oh my gosh, that's crazy, you could read my mind, it wouldn't mean anything to you. But what Kojima does instead is Psycho Mantis reads your memory card and your behavioral habits. So that feeling of surprise happens not to Solid Snake, but to you, the player. And that's what makes the story that much stronger, is because it's happening. Oh, I'm surprised because this video game character knows that I like to play Symphony of the Night. That's crazy. Like Snake's there, but for a second, it happens to you.
Mm-hmm.
You're the one experiencing that stuff, and that makes the difference. Again, it's in service to that story. It builds Psycho Mantis's character, even though you kill him 5 minutes later. But it reinforces, how crazy, interesting, and powerful Psycho Mantis can be.
Yeah, it just makes me wonder, because now he's not doing Metal Gear anymore, and he's doing something brand new. And
Good.
It's good, but it's also kind of scary in a way, because you don't know. Like, I do trust Hideo Kojima. He's he has a great mind and great writing and directing and all that stuff.
Mostly.
Yeah, but it's something new. I mean, what if it's bad?
It might be. I think it's going to at least be decent.
Mm-hmm.
If for no other reason, then he's also surrounded by talented people. I think that's going to go a long way. I'm sure Sony's given him a long rope, a long leash, whatever you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm pretty sure that they know better than to just turn their backs and then come back 2 years later and release whatever is there. He has not only directed, but produced a lot of really good games. And when I say good games, I mean not Metal Gear Solid, not fantastic, not great, but he produced Boktai and Zone of the Enders, and he directed Police Knots and Snatcher, and all of these games were considered critically good, at least, if not great. Snatcher is still considered one of the best cyberpunk games ever made. Apparently Police Knots has a great story that is still never been officially translated, even though there's a fan patch, and all you gotta do is do a simple Google search, and it's the first thing to come up. And Zone of the Enders, I fucking love that game. And Boktai I haven't played yet, but it's a pretty cool idea. And so I have a lot of faith in him. Even if he made a terrible game, I'm pretty sure I would enjoy it, if that makes any sense. There's some bad stuff that I enjoy. I like watching Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. The movie's a piece of trash, but man, it's entertaining.
Yeah, kind of off topic a little bit, and it's a little movies. I watched Miami Connection the other night.
I love that movie. The movie's fantastic.
We'll talk about that on Big Trouble, but
yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited for Death Stranding. I've been throwing theories at you, which you were kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think some of your theories were too on the nose. I think I don't know. I think Kojima has a little bit more nuance than you're giving him credit for. Which, again, nuance and Kojima, I can't believe I just put those two words in the same sentence. But regarding the kind of storytelling you're talking about, I think he is.
Well, I want to say it's a little more me thinking outside of the box than people going, well, it's Silent Hills and you just don't know it, or it's kind of like a side story to Metal Gear and you just don't know it. And I'm like, realistically, they can't do that because of copyright claims and all that stuff. And then people are just like, well, maybe they did a deal and they didn't say anything. I'm like, that's kind of impossible in this internet age.
Yeah. Even if that wasn't dumb, I think people are misunderstanding. And of course, I've never met the guy. I don't fucking know anything about him. But I don't think he would want to do that. I think if they came to him and they're like, hey, do you want to secretly make a new Metal Gear game? He'd tell them to fuck right off. I don't think he wants to make another Metal Gear game. He barely wanted to make 2 and 3. He did not want to make 4, and he did not want to make 5. He wants to make something brand new. That's why all these games keep getting radically weird and different, because he's trying to sneak in what he wants to do. He didn't want to make a Metal Gear game. He wanted to make a third-person shooter about being in Afghanistan. And so he did with Metal Gear Solid 5. Like, maybe not specifically that example, but he worked in the ideas that he wanted to use into the Metal Gear game. He didn't make what he thought was the next logical step for Metal Gear. He made his next game, and he shoehorned Metal Gear into it, I think.
Yeah. And, I mean, we'll see what happens with Death Stranding. When do you think we'll know what the game is actually about? Because
when we're playing it. Really what I mean, even then, maybe not. I have no idea. But, and that's what I hope. I really hope that he doesn't, in an interview at some point, say, well, actually, you're a futuristic UPS driver, and there's these ghosts that are actually on another plane of existence where time moves 5 times as fast. And yeah, that's the plot. And I really, if he did that, I'd be super disappointed.
It's kind of cool seeing, like, because he said that Norman Reedus's character, he's a white collar worker or something like that, where he's not your Solid Snake where he knows all these moves and stuff and he's from the military. He's just gonna be your average Joe just doing a job.
More blue collar then, isn't it?
Yeah, blue collar, my bad. White collar is something else. Yeah. I just found out that today is Friday the 13th.
It sure is.
And with news, did you hear about the Friday the 13th game dying?
Dying?
Yeah, so apparently the people who made or has copyrights for Friday the 13th with Jason and stuff sued the game developers. And pretty much they had to stop making content for the game. So they can't even do like an update for like a tree in the game.
I remember thinking something like that might happen because when they were doing like live streams, when they were trying to fund that game, they said something about like they're using the rights that are owned by so-and-so, not this studio and something else. And I remember it sounding real suspect, but hey, they made it this far. What a good idea for a game. I just wish it had been implemented better.
Yeah, but you know what sucks? And they're obviously not doing refunds because it's business, and you when you buy games on Steam, you really don't own the game. Like there's really like fine print at the games. Like if they stop supporting the game, you can't get your money back. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But it kind of sucks. You buy this game. And it's been like a year or two, and it's just like, well, we can't do any updates, so we'll keep the servers up until we're completely gone. Then you see the players dwindling down, and it's like, what the fuck? Get your legal team in there. Because I know this was like a indie developer. I don't think it was like a AAA title. I know, what's the guy from X Play?
Adam Sessler.
Yeah, he was... I think like director or producer in a game or something like that.
Was he?
Yeah. He was part of the game. I know that.
I could see him being a producer.
And it was a good game. I mean, there's Dead by Daylight, which is kind of like the same premise where there's a Jason character trying to go after survivors and stuff, and you do tasks.
Yeah.
But it's a shame. And I really don't know what to say anymore besides it kind of sucks.
Yeah, that kind of stuff's always a shame. Like, you could tell the people who are making that game were passionate about making that game. Like, it's not that they worked for EA and EA assigned them to make the next Need for Speed. You could tell that these people got together and said, you know what would be fantastic? An asymmetrical multiplayer game about Jason Voorhees killing a bunch of camp counselors. And then enough people thought that was a good idea to give them the money to do it. That's a really cool thing. I'm glad that we live in an age where that kind of stuff happens, but it's not always going to take off. You're not always going to have the next insert indie darling here, I guess.
And I see Captain Toad. They added some cool features and new levels.
Not enough, man. That sucked. That game, it was one of my absolute favorite Wii U games. I wanted to rebuy it, but there's just not enough. There's not enough to justify it for me.
It's like $40 still.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe when a deal comes out.
Maybe. It's a Nintendo game. They don't like to drop in price.
Yeah. Um, the games I bought Octopath obviously. Axiom Verge. I bought Limbo on the Switch.
Limbo! But yeah, I know what you mean. I have that on Steam. I need to play it.
And then I bought Enter the Gungeon.
Ooh.
And I forgot there was one more.
Oh, I got Resident Evil 6 I started playing. I forgot to mention that.
Oh, what do you think of it?
It's better than people said it was, but so far it's not like it's knocking my socks off. I've been playing it with a friend and having a ton of fun, but like on its own, if I was trying to be critical, man, that game is just a game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a lot of stuff in it. I'm like, well, that's stupid, but no, it's fun, and there's been some genuinely creepy things and some genuinely creative things.
Yeah, I mean, after Resident Evil 4 came out, people were like, "We like this shit here," and then they came out with Resident Evil 5, and they're like, "No, we didn't really want that." And they're
No,
like,
that's too much guns, too many guns.
"Yeah," and then they're like, "Resident Evil 6, here you go. It's a little bit of Resident Evil 4, and there's some action in there. You know, go have fun." And people are like, "We don't want this either," and I'm just like, "Fuck!" They brought you zombies back. What else do you want? And then Resident Evil 7 came out, and it was
well, at least.
and then we're getting Resident Evil 2 remake, which hopefully I hope is good.
Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm. Well, Andy, it's like half an hour, and we talked a lot about Metal Gear.
Yeah, that's easy to do. We're both super passionate about the gear.
Mm-hmm.
I guess Metal Gear will be this show's Star Wars, except we don't actually hate it. We actually.
Well, it's not that we don't hate it. We just have different opinions about what's going on in Star Wars industry.
Yeah.
Even their games are not doing that well. Oh my god. Before we sign off, Amy Hennig, did you hear about her Star Wars game getting shelved by EA?
What?
Amy
Already?
That's the that's not the Star Wars game that was announced at EA.
Oh, I don't think so. Wasn't she working on that one that was 1313 or whatever?
Yeah, that was the one where it was going to be single player based only.
Yeah,
which kind of makes
that's a shame. I bet she could put together a pretty good game.
Well, yeah, she's done Uncharted, so.
Right? Yeah, for anyone who didn't know, but that was one of the main things I was most interested about.
Mm-hmm. And it sucks.
Yeah, no, that is older news. I'm sorry. When you said it, like my brain didn't put everything together quick enough.
Yeah, because we're a bi-weekly podcast, like I believe that was 2 weeks ago that they talked about this. But on that note, everybody, we are our podcast is located on btilp.podbean.com. We're also on iTunes under the Big Trouble Little Podcast. I think we should change that since we have two different podcasts on one feed. I don't know. But we have a website, bigtroublelittle.podcast.com. And next week, we have our Big Trouble Little podcast, where we'll be watching Mohawk on Netflix. So make sure you watch that and then listen to our episode. Remember, we are always spoiler heavy in our podcast, so make sure you watch the content before you listen to the content.
Absolutely.
To that note, everybody have a good day. Later.
Thanks.